This is Gemara's Zevachim Daf Samach Zayin. Rolling on Samach Vavam and Beis, we began the Mishnah, and we like all the learning to be an incredible schos for Shlema for Gabriel Simcha be Miriam Ahuva. So we're in the second case of the Mishnah, in which the Mishnah continues. Allah Sa'if Sha'aso Lamata Kima'ase Chatas L'Shem Chatas. That if you do your Oila Sa'if, now how do you do your Oila Sa'if, says the Mishnah. You did the Oila Sa'if Lamata. 1 second, we just lost the daf in front of us. Yes, here it goes. The same way that the Chatas is done for a Chatas, but you're doing an Oila. So you're doing your Oila Lamata like the way the Chatas is done, the Shem Chatas. So Rav Eliezer Aimer Moilin Ba, you clearly are abusing, misusing, acting incorrectly. Rav Yeshua no, Ein Moilin Ba. Amar Rav Eliezer comes to argue Rav Yeshua. Umayim Chata Shein Moilin Ba Lishma. Says Rav Eliezer, I don't understand. Rav Eliezer says, you Rav Yeshua, you're telling me Ein Moilin Ba. Says Rav Eliezer, if a Chatas in which she'ein ma'ilin by lishma, where there's no me'ila when you misuse it, if it's done lishma, but yet, if you do it for the wrong person, that's if the chatas was done for the right reason. It was misused, but it was done at least l'shem chatas. But kishashina shema, if you change the name ma'ilin, if you do the chatos for an ayla, there is mila. So when it comes to an ayla, says the Mishnah, shemayalin ba lishma, that if you did a lishma just for the wrong reason, just you misused it, there is mila. Kshashina shema, when you change the name and you do l'shem chatos, einay din sheyimalu ba. So says Rav Eliezer to Rav Yeshua, how can you say that there's no meila in this case? So Rav Yeshua responds. Rav Yeshua Amar Le Rav Yeshua Loi Imam Rit Bechat Tashin Nishma L'Shem Oila. No, if you're going to say there's Meila by a Chatos when you did it for an Oila, why? Shekein Shina Eshima Lidavar Sheishma Meila, because you changed it to an Oila. And an Ayla is an entity that has Me'ila. But therefore, what are you going to say, Rav Elazar? Taimer ba'Ayla sheshina shemal l'shem chatas shekein shina shemal l'davar she'ein ba Me'ila. A chatas doesn't have Me'ila. So responds Rav Yeshua that there's no question. So Amar lo Rav Eliezer. So Rav Eliezer doesn't give up. As we turn over to Samach Zayin Amid Aleph, excuse me, says Rav Eliezer, what do you mean? If you shech the kachim in the south, that's going to prove you. How's it going to prove to you? Because you did it for kachim kalim, which is an entity she'ein by me'ila. So the shina, the change over here, was she'ein by me'ila, and yet Umayalin bahandis yas mila. So afata. So to you, Rabbi Yeshua, al titam ela. Don't ask about oila fishina shem af al pisha shina shema tachatas, which is the davar she'ein by meila. That what sheyim alu bai, that there she yes be meila. So says Rav Eliezer, I could prove to you for kachim that there she yes be meila. Amrle Rabbi Yeshua. So Yeshua responds, Loi, Imam Rekachi Kachem B'Darim, V'Shachta, the Shem Kachem Kalim, Shekin Shina Sheman the Davar, Sheyesh Iser V'Heter. Says Rabbi Yeshua, I could hold my own. You know why? Because in the case that you just quoted to me, that's a case of Shinoi. That's a case of changing to something Sheyesh Iser V'Heter. Whereas in our case, therefore you can't bring me a raya from your case. We have a way to machlekes between Rav Elazar and Rav Yeshua. Tanya, we learned in our brayso, Amar Rav Elazar, Rav Yeshua, another machlekes asham sheshachto b'safain l'shem shlamim. If you have a carbon asham that you shechted b'safain as a shlamim. That should prove to us that what? Meaning, the conversation continues. In the Mishnah, we had 2 times back and forth. Now the conversation continues. So says Rav Elazar, you know what? I'm going to prove to you that there's yes mi'ilah from an asham that was shechted b'tzafa in l'shem shlamim. Why? Sheshina Shema, you changed it for a shlamim. Umaylim by afatal tatam ela shafi sheshina Shema sheyamala by. Does she ask me mi'ilah? Amar lo Rav Yeshua responds, not so quick. Amar lo Rav Yeshua loi. Amar ba'ashan she'im shina eshemai. You're telling me, what are you proving to me from an asham that you did for a shlamim? So it says if Yeshua, no, an asham, which is what? Sheshina Shemai and She'im Shina Shemai Im Amrit Ba'asham. I lost the place. Amr Le Rav Yeshua, there it is. Loi. Im Amrit Ba'asham She'im Shina Shemai Loi Shina Es Mekaimai. You did not change its location, whereas by us, Taimar Ba'ila Sheshina Shemai V'Shina Es Mekaimai. So you cannot bring your raya from the asham. Amar Rava, so it sounds like after Rav Yeshua fires this last shot, sounds like Rav Elazar is quiet. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Elazar, asham sheshachta ba'adarim l'shem shlamim, an asham that was shechted ba'adarim as a shlamim yechiach. That's the praya. That what? Sheshina Shemai, Veshina Es Mekaimai. You change the name and you change the makam, and yet what? Umaylim boy. Avatat Tamala Shavi Sheshina Shemai, Veshina Es Mekaimai. That Mayalin boy. So if Rav was bothered, why didn't Rav Elazar respond as such? And Amar Lei Rav Yeshua. And Rav Yeshua responds, Loi. Im Amrit, Ba'ashav Shina Shemai V'Shina Es Mekaimai, V'Loi Shina Es Maisav. There's no change in the action itself. Taimer Ba'ila Shina Shemai V'Shina Es Maisav V'Shina Es Mekaimai. So Amar Rava. So says Rava. 1 second. Rava says V'Neim Alei. 1 second. I apologize. Go back for a moment. That was Rav Elazar versus Rav Yeshua. That was Elazar versus Rav Yeshua. Now comes along Rava. I jumped the gun. Now comes along Rava. Amar Rava, v'neim alei. Why did Rav Elazar not respond? Again, I apologize. I jumped the Gemara. That was Rav Elazar and Rav Yeshua. Now is where Rava steps in, and Rava says, 1 second. Why does Rav Elazar not respond? Why didn't he respond from that case? And yet there still is mi'ilah. So Rav Yeshua is tining. That's because of the Shinai Maisav. Rav Elazar could respond that I have a precedent. Mamish the same case, and there is yes mi'ilah. So says Rava, Mideloi, Kamerli Rachi. From the fact that Rav Elazar did not respond this way to Rav Yeshua, Shema Mina, I could see Nochas Rav Elazar times Rav Yeshua. He's okay with the reason of Rav Yeshua. Why? The Amar Rav Adar Rav, Oimar Rav Yeshua, Oila Sa'if, Sha'asoi Lemat, Kimaseu Chatos, Hashem Chatos. Last Rav Yeshua said, if an Oila Sa'if was done Lemat, as a chatos, a shem chatos, like we saw in our Mishnah. Bein she'emolak b'sim achad nimsheches, v'nasis chatos oif. As soon as he does, kivan she'emolak b'sim achad, once you did one simin of the malika, you did with one of the 2 pipes, the carbon becomes a chatos. Says the Gemara, Yachi chatos oif, nami shaso lemala, kimaseu oila. Why don't we say the same thing? That if a chatos is done in a lemala like in oila, why don't we say the same thing? That what mechi malik basim and echad timashav tavi oila soif and v'chi tema maybe tami achanami. It is that the chatos that's done as like in oila becomes an oila. Again, obviously it's the same oif, the same bird. V'chi tema achanami, but it can't be. V'am Rav Chanina, 15 lines from the bottom. First one line is V'hamar Rav Chanina Mishem Rav bin Kach Hay Hatzah Shal Mishnah this was the correct way of reading the Mishnah. My lav kachi yatsa v'suloi, and nothing more. So the Mishnah seemingly is precise, and therefore Yeshua argues only in that one case, and not in this case, meaning that in this case he does not say that it's going to become a oila, that if the chatos is done as an oila, becomes an oila. No, he doesn't say it. Says the Gemara law, it's not how you read it. Kula Mishnah. This is where the entire Mishnah, meaning in all cases, indeed, it subsumes the din of the other carbon. That is Teretz number 1. Rav Ashi says no. Rav Ashi Amar Bish Lamayla Soif Shesol Lamata Kamaseu Chatas. If you have an oil that's on Lamata as a Chatas, Shem Chatas Kivan De Ha Hechshira B'Simin Echad. Since it's accomplished with one simin, Veha Hechshira B'Shnei Siman, meaning a Chatos is kosher by going through one siman, whereas an oila is only kosher going through two simanim. Ve'oila is oiv lamata lasa, and there's no oila lamata mechota sekra. Therefore, that's why it becomes a chatos right away. But on the flip side, el chatos oiv kiven the ramar malika b'chamakim ksheira b'chimalig b'simin echad ifsala. When you did one simin of the malika, it makes it possible that it's not an oila, and therefore kihadar malak be'edach simin heichi mimashchav avi oila soif. It will not become an oila soif, and that is the end of this conversation. So Rav Ashi comes along and he argues, don't tell me that in both cases it assumes the other carbon. Says Rav Ashi, there's a critical flaw in that logic. So now says the Gemara Gufa, let's dive a little bit deeper into that which we just said. 4 lines from the bottom. And therefore what? As we just said. So the Ayla, once you did the malika of one simin, it's no longer going to be considered an Ayla, but rather it's going to get the din of a chatas. Says the Gemara as we turn over to Samach Zayin Amabeis Ta Shema, we have a stira between this din of Rav Barava and another one explaining Rav Yeshua. Ta Shema Chatos Lezu Ve'oila Lezu. We have 2 birds, and it's a chatos for one woman and an oila for another woman. Also, shteim lemala, both of them are performed lemala mechota seker, which again is where you perform the oila, not the chatos. Mechsa kasher, mechsa basel. The oila is kasher, the chatos is basel. But shteim lamata, if they're both done lamata mechota sekra, mechsa kasher, mechsa basel. Again, nachamal, it's half and half. Achas lemala, achas lemata. Then Shteim psulos. Why? Shani Omer, because maybe they were done of fakert, maybe they're done of fuch, maybe they're done in the wrong place. Shani Omer, chatas karva lemala, v'oilas karva lemata. So says the Gemara, that's a Mishnah. Now, what can we bring a raya from this Mishnah? Nihi, let's 6 lines down. Nami da'oila karva lemata. Why are both pasul in the last case when one's above, one's below? It's true. The oila might have been lamata, and if the oila is done lamata, it's the wrong place. But wait, what did you just tell me? Based on what you just said, if the oila is done lamata, after the malika of one simin, what happens? The oila becomes a chatos. So how are you telling me they're both pasul? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Madam Rav Yeshua b'chad gavra, betray gavra, mi amar. He never said this din by 2 different gavras. He only said that if you have one carbon, then the oila can be transformed into a chatas. But if I have 2 different people, then it can not. Tashma, another kasha, says a Mishnah, another Mishnah on Kinim, Chatas v'oila usetuma. We have 2 women. They gave the kohen a chatas, an oila, and a stam bird, and umefureshes. Also, kulan lamala, they're all done lamala nechot sekra. Mechsa kasha, mechsa basel, kulan lamata, mechsa kasha, mechsa basel. Chetzayin lamala, chetzayin lamata. Eina keshira, which one? Ella the stuma, umis Chalekes b'neihem, and they're split between the two women. So what's the raya? Says the Gemara, but we have the bird that's specified. It's not kosher at all. But v'amai, based on what you just taught us, nehi nami doila karvelamata. But why don't we say timasha v'tavi chatas oif, that the oil should become a chatos? Maybe you're going to tell me I'll do like Rav Yeshua. This Mishnah is like Rav Yeshua. Can you say that? But Tashma Yisha Shamar Areya like Kan im Ilet Zachar. If a woman says, I'm going to bring a pair of birds if I give birth to a baby boy. Yolda Zachar Meviyushtei Kinim. If she gives birth to a boy, she has to bring two birds. Achas lenejav, achas lechayvasa. Nas nasa lekayin. If she gave it to the kayin, kayin sarich laseisen shalish lamala v'achas lamata. If she gives them to the kayin, then he has to bring three of the oilos lemaila and one below. Lo yasa kayin ella asa shteyem lemaila. If he did not, but rather, what did the kohen do? He did two of the oifais lamala and two limata, and didn't ask her. Then what had happened to Beis lamata? V'loy nimlach. She has to bring another bird. This yigrivanu lemala mimin echad, from one min, and umishtei minim tavi shtei. So says the Gemara, so what do we see from here? But Persha Nedara, she explained her neder, then Tzarech Lavi Oid, Gimel prayed mimin echad, Umi Beis minim tavi dalid, Kava Nedara. Now says the Mishnah, if she said that her neder is part of a chiyuv that she has to bring, then what? As we turn over to Samaches Amid Aleph, Svichas tavi Oid Chamesh Breidin Lamala mimin echad, Ubeis mimin tavi sheish. So now, we're going through all these cases. We're going to pause right now because each one is a complicated case that we're not really delving into. But we're in the middle of, let's just see, what are we in the middle of doing? We're in the middle of proving that it's Shitas Rabbi Yeshua. And if it's Shitas Rabbi Yeshua, then we're going to have a kasha on the way that Rav Ada Barava is explaining, because this has to be according to Rabbi Yeshua. We'll stop over here and we'll go a little bit deeper into these cases of the different kinim in the next year, the different pairs of birds. Siyata Dishmaya.